when AI came down the pike in December of 2022, at least that's the first time I was introduced to it, I saw right away that there's some peril in the future. And what it was the modes by which I typically measured my students' progress in the classes toward all the intellectual outcomes I really cherish that were becoming obsolete quickly. In other words, the 5-page paper telling me whether you admire Achilles or Agamemnon, who's right in book 1 of the Iliad. I knew that we were at the end of the usefulness of that kind of an assignment. At the same time, though, the modes of thinking that we're trying to work to enhance, they're not obsolete at all. AI is not making those obsolete. In fact, it's making those more valuable than ever.
It's interesting. A decent amount of the time, I'd say I am quite optimistic about the path that this could lead us down. But there are worries I have, and I think you've kind of touched on those here. I mean, when I look in my own field, if I look in STEM fields, I see amazing opportunities with AI as a tool. Huge data sets coming out of huge experiments where there are clearly going to be, incredibly intricate patterns within that data that tell us hint at something fundamental about the world, and we would never tease that out of the data with our own ways of doing things. But AI can come in and can be taught and can then teach itself to tease out these patterns. So that's a remarkable opportunity. The two things that worry me are, one, any data, I'm saying something very simple to someone who studies these things, but any data has patterns in it. Not all of them are meaningful.
Right.
So how do you figure out which are meaningful patterns?
Yeah.
And then even if you do know you have a meaningful pattern, the thing we care about, I think, is the thing you said. What does that mean? How does that actually tell us about the world? Because if we just know there's a pattern and we don't know, many things in history, many parts of science were discovered this way, right? We found patterns and we learned to interpret those patterns. But we learned to interpret those patterns with minds that were not taught using AI. So I worry when you talk about the 5-page paper going away, I wonder how much of what I might think of as the classical ways of teaching science go away. And then I worry a little bit about whether people will have the requisite skills to figure out whether the patterns we find are meaningful.
Yeah.
That's a small part of my pessimism, but I'm often optimistic.